Welcome back to another Great Dog of the North video construction series. In this series of episodes, we're going to be building this guy, the Tamiya King Hauler. Now, this kit's a little different than working on the other cars, or the other Tamiya cars, in that in those cases, the parts bags that are labeled in those cars, a particular part bag will cover a sequential set of steps. But in this kit, parts from each of these bags will be used in each of the steps. So we may need some parts from bag D, some parts from bag A, some from F, and so a little organization is in order before we start building the kit. So what I did was I got some of these handy little storage bottles from Amazon. They come 12 to a set for a couple of bucks. And what I'm going to do is, since I have to open these bags and they don't have a nice way to reseal them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the parts, all the screws in the different in jars, and label the jars so that I can find the parts when I need them. And I'm also going to track down and label all of the plastic, the bags with the plastic parts, so that they're easy to identify as well. Building the other kits, I did see that not having labels on the plastic parts bags slowed things down quite a bit, and it made it hard to find stuff, because it's really, sometimes it's hard to see the little parts in there. So I'm going to perform all that organization, and then I'll be back and I'll show you the results. Alright. Okay, welcome back. I have separated and labeled all of the parts bags into these little jars, getting ready to start the build. And I identified all the plastic bags, well, plastic parts, and I labeled them with the Sharpie according to the part numbers that are in the bag. So, for example, this bag of pressed parts, all of the parts in here start with PC. So I've labeled all the bags and identified all the parts. First set of instructions on the build. Step 1, they have us putting together the servos, one for steering, one for shifting, and then those two servos get attached to these rails, and then we put these cross members together, and finally at the end of step 4 we have the two rails fully assembled. Okay, I don't know if you can see all of that here. Yeah. Okay, I've just completed up to step 4, where I put the whole frame together. As you can see, it's together. I've got the two servos on here. I think you got a pretty good look at those. They're all set up, and I got to tell you, I got a new tool. This is a Skill handheld cordless screwdriver. I highly recommend getting one of these. It really does save a lot of wear and tear on your wrists. I mean, I have a pretty good ratcheting screwdriver. In fact, I've got a couple of them, but this thing, it really is really very good. And I got another new tool for building these cars that I know I'm going to need as we go on. I needed to have one before, and I want to thank some of the guys on the Tamiya website for recommending this. But I got a digital micrometer for measuring some of the rods later on, and I'll give you a good demo of that when the time comes. This is really long. It's very cool. This truck will be pretty good sized vehicle when it's finished. Alright, see you in a bit. Okay, I've just completed the construction of these two rear leaf springs. This is step 5. And this is what they look like when they're done. Get these little plates on the bottom. Now these, in step 6, will get attached to the frame. And in step 4 I had to make, step 5 I had to make 2. So when I come back, I'll have them attached to the frame and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, at the end of step 6, the rear leaf springs are attached to the frame. Now it's on to step 7, building the differential gear. That's going to be interesting. At the end of step 6, we have 2 of these all metal differentials built up, and we'll put those aside. They will be used again in step 9 and 10. At the end of step 8, we have 3 of the differential housing units put together with these little bearings. Down in here. Getting these little E-rings on is challenging, but it wasn't too hard. You could have a good pair of needle nose pliers to get them on. So those are done. Now we're on to step 9, where we work on the rear shaft. At the end of step 10, we'll have 2 of these differential units with the shafts fully assembled. And of course you got to make sure they spin freely. All the little gears inside the differential are working. The axles spin okay. And so we'll have 2 of those, and we'll go on to step 10, where we assemble the rear axle housing units. At the end of step 10, you'll have 2 of these rear axle units. This one has 2 of the joint cups. And the other one only has 1. It's really important to get these lubricated, and also these little grub screws that are down inside the joint cup. You want to make sure you get a good amount of thread lock on there, make sure they're good and tight. You don't want them to loosen up and pop out after you've been running the truck for a while. So that's it. Now we're on to step 11. In step 11, the rear axles are attached to the frame. On these on our leaf springs. At the end of step 12, we have installed the radius arms onto the rear axles and the differential housings. And you can see they're still floating pretty free here. But you ought to be able to see that pretty clearly. Alright, on to step 13. We start to put the dampers together. Okay, at the end of step 13, you will have constructed 6 of these pretty nifty little shock absorbers. These aren't oil filled. They have little springs in them. Alright, at step 14, the dampers are installed on the arms and the chassis on both sides. Now on to step 15, where I'm going to have to use that new digital micrometer that I got. In step 15, I assembled these 3 rods that will get connected to the servos that are already installed in the frame. And it's a good thing I have the precision micrometer. The pictures in the book are close to what they're telling us. They say they want 91, but the picture's just a little bit off, and it's really hard to get the little turnbuckles facing the right way with the measurements that they require. So this one is 91 millimeters. From the inside measurement from here to here. This one is 54, and this little guy is 28. So we'll be using those in step 16, and we'll also be attaching 2 more of the shock absorbers, the dampers that we built back in step 13. We'll be putting those all on the frame and hooking up these rods to the servos. Step 16, we attach the servo control arms, 2 more shock absorbers, and these shackles to the frame. Now on to step 17. There, I think you can see that pretty well. Trying to get you a good view there. And see the shock absorbers. Alright. At the end of step 17, I've completed the initial construction of the front axle. And in step 18, this will get attached to the chassis. It's kind of interesting to put together. It's all metal. These are all metal parts on here. Also in 17, we have a couple of these arms that these will go on the uprights and the wheels later. Alright, and then when I reach the end of step 19, I will stop the video, stop this portion of the video, and put it up on YouTube. Alright, thank you. At the end of step 18, I have the front axle attached to the frame. It bolts on with these 3 bolts here, and at the top of the damper, the shock absorber. And you can see the leaf springs actually work. I mean, they don't have a lot of give in them, but they do work. Alright, on to step 19, where we put the control arms and assemble the front axles, the actual places with the wheels go on. So at the end of step 19, I have the front axle and the steering servo hooked up. can see this is one of the rods that I put together that I measured with the digital micrometer to 91 millimeters, and you can see the axle's really nice and straight. This is the steering, of course. This is the front axle, and it'll be underneath like that when it rolls along. So it's looking pretty good. Okay, that's the end of step 19, and the end of the first part, the first build video. And I'm going to put this together now and get it up on YouTube. And as always, like and subscribe. And in the next video, we will put together the transmission and complete the assembly of the truck. There's a lot more to go. And of course, the multifunction unit, we're going to put that in. I got to build that and put that in. But that's it for now. Thanks again for watching.